Welcome to Wasatch Weekends. I'm your host, Gretchen Pleshaw. I'm very excited. The Slam Dance Film Festival is back. Tickets are on sale right now, and it all started at the Yarrow, and guess what? It is back there. So pretty exciting stuff. This Monday, also, if you are looking for a job, today is your lucky day because we're going to give you the tips and the tricks to do so. So keep it right here. Get your coffee because Wasatch Weekends starts right now.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Welcome back to Wasatch Weekends. Now, Bill Humbert is going to give us some tips and tricks on how to get those job applications in and what to do with them. So keep it here. Let's take a look.
Welcome back to the show. We are now joined by Bill Humbert, the recruiter guy, to give us a little bit of information on how to kind of navigate the difficulties of submitting job applications over the internet. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you, Ben. It's great to be back.
Well, it's so great to have you again. And so, as I was saying, it can be a little bit difficult navigating the job search online, just sitting there and looking at hundreds of job postings and not really knowing where to start. And after you do start, so many people have had the experience of sending out tons and tons and tons of job applications only to see nothing in return. So how would you recommend people go about beginning their job search online?
Well, Ben, I took this photo of the penguins down in Simonstown, South Africa in July, and it immediately made me think of all of the candidates who are kind of like in that group of penguins, and they're just so frustrated because they're sending resume after resume after resume after resume and never hearing back from the company. And then there was this one penguin that said, "I've had enough. I'm out of here." And he started waddling away from the group and to do things differently. And that's what I suggest that professionals do. They need to go and start doing things differently in their search in order to get better results. And I call it posting and hoping someone is looking at my resume. And so that's, be the successful person who networks their way to a new position.
Well, and I gotta say that's largely been my experience in the job search as well, that I've submitted hundreds of applications online and occasionally I'll get an email response back, but I've almost never gotten an interview from an online job application. But pretty much every job I've ever had has been through some personal connection, whether it's been a friend, an old roommate, or maybe even an old coworker that I've been able to rely on to, figure out where people are hiring a little bit more and get my foot right in the door there with that little bit of a personal connection. And I imagine that's what you're talking about when you're talking about networking.
Absolutely. That personal connection can make all of the difference in the world in your career search.
What if we're really struggling with that? Like whether it's just our social network just doesn't quite have the right connections, or if I'm trying to get into a new market or a new career that I don't necessarily have a whole lot of connections in that industry, how would you recommend that people begin their networking journey?
Well, you've probably heard of the 6 degrees of separation. so that I can reach anybody in the United States and probably anybody in the world. I don't really have that reach, but within the United States, I can meet anybody within 6 different phone calls. And that's how you increase your network. And that's how you go finding a job either in another industry, another area, or even within your own area.
Awesome. So just reaching out, trying to make that first phone call to get that introduction, get that foot in the door just a little bit. Like, how do you tend to go find that information? Do you take advantage of just Google searching, or are you doing something a little bit more in detail, like going through LinkedIn or combing through company directory?
Well, in today's world, you could use ChatGPT and potentially be able to narrow it down to who it is that does what within the companies that you're trying to target. In addition to that, though, there's always LinkedIn. It's important for everybody. And I'm not just talking anybody, I'm talking everybody. It's important for everybody to have 501 connections on LinkedIn. And what that does is it gives you gives everybody the notification you have 500 plus connections. And the other advantage is it gives you a whole group of second and third level connections that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
So really just taking advantage of that social media, and specifically LinkedIn, the professionals' social media, to really kind of take advantage of that 6 degrees.
That's correct. The other way is, too often people forget about neighbors, forget about family. Each one of those people knows another 250 to 500 people. And many times when I've coached people who are looking for a new job, I coached them to do that, and they came back to me and they say to me, "You're not going to believe what happened." I went, "What?" "My family, my brother said, I didn't know you were looking for a job. I know exactly the person you need to talk to."
Exactly, like taking advantage of that network there. But let me ask you this. If we're not really looking for a job at this specific moment, but we never know when that moment might arise, how would you recommend that we build and maintain that network during our careers so that we do have people to rely on in times of need? Because I would imagine that starting networking right when you're looking for a job is probably not the best time to get started.
Exactly. Well, starting networking is something that you can always do. And I agree with you. It's better to keep your network warm and, call them up. "Hey, just touching base, see how things are going with you. Is there anything I can do for you?" And if you're offering to do something for someone else, what are they going to be more willing to do for you?
And really help build that reciprocal relationship in your network so that people are coming to you for help too. And that way, it's not just a taking relationship, it's something that you're providing value to as well. Which
That's right.
I would imagine when it comes down to finding a job, having that track record of providing value is a big deal.
It is a big deal. As a recruiter, I call myself a connector. And I've known people, have come to me, don't pay for my coaching, but they've asked me, who do I know? And I'm happy to tell them, well, maybe you should call so-and-so, here's their phone number. Or if you like, I'll do a personal introduction on email and introduce the two of you and give the contact information for both of you. So it's really important to do that, because then people become much more comfortable with you as a connection. The other thing to be considering, though, you don't just stop at that first level or that first degree. You ask them at the end of your conversation, who else do you feel I should speak with next? You don't ask them to think about it, because I'll guarantee you what will happen is they'll think about it for about 3 weeks and then forget all about it. But if you ask them who they feel that you should speak with next, the knee jerk is going to be the person that you probably need to speak with.
That totally makes sense. Now, if you're not recommending that we just go and start cold calling people at businesses that we would like to work at, though, right? You're trying to recommend a little bit more of a subtle and a more endearing method, if you will.
Well, I would say there is a time and a place for cold calling. And if you're in sales, you better be comfortable cold calling. And that's the time to call them. If you can and it's easy enough to find out who the VP of sales is at a company. And you call them up and say, hey, I know that you're always in the market for a good sales professional. I'm that person. When can we talk?
Awesome. Well, it sounds like a great way to get started on that job search is just reaching out to the people that are working at the places that you want to work in and just start that conversation, get that ball rolling, and that way get your name in the door, your foot in the door, your face in the door, and get that job. Well, Bill Humbert.
One more thing.
Definitely.
It's important to talk to people within the companies because in many companies, they can get a $500 to $2,000 employee referral bonus, and they're going to be much more willing to introduce you to their company if they're going to get a bonus.
Well, that is definitely some good incentive to help and reach out to those people who might be able to help get you in at the place you're looking to be. Bill Humbert, thank you so much. If people are looking for more information, make sure to check out recruiterguy.com. Bill Humbert, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back after a short break.
Welcome back to the show. Now, after you put in your application, the next thing that you do is to have that interview. And a lot of people can get nervous. There's some anxiety around it. So we're going to talk to an expert about how to keep your cool.
Welcome back to our show. Now, I am so excited because I have a wonderful personal friend and professional friend as well joining me on the couch. We have some excellent business tips and tricks and how to land the perfect interview and present yourself best. Joining me today on the couch is talent acquisition manager and business consultant, Emily Gross.
Hi.
How are you, Emily?
I am so thrilled to be here with my dear friend Kim and hopefully share some helpful tips today.
Yeah, I think you are, what you do is very successful. And so you're a talent acquisition manager. Tell me a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, so I manage a team of recruiters. I absolutely love recruiting, talent acquisition. I'm super passionate about people finding career fulfillment, and that all starts with your journey in the job hunt.
Yeah, so you manage a team of recruiters, but you obviously started at the ground level. So
yes.
As a recruiter, what are things that you typically look for when you start with screening candidates?
Absolutely. This is really your chance as a candidate to get out there, tell your story, be your own brand. And I always say, go out there and get what you want. You know what I mean? Think about opportunities that you want. Look for them online. There's lots of different ways to search for them and go after it. This is a chance to really get the right match for you.
Well, things have definitely changed on the job search. So you are no longer confined to just your local city because there are remote jobs and jobs nationwide. So tell me about how you would go about looking for a job all over the U.S.
Yeah, I actually think this is super exciting because we are no longer limited to our geo area of when we're looking for our next opportunity. You can actually go into many of the job search platforms, LinkedIn, Indeed, and change that location to remote. It's going to pull up all the remote opportunities, and that opens you up essentially to the entire U.S. So lots of opportunities out there.
Absolutely. So as a candidate or a job seeker, what would you recommend as the first steps? What's the first thing that I should do as I begin my job search?
Absolutely. There's a few things. So I would definitely start with your resume. And resumes traditionally have been listing your titles, the companies, and then job responsibilities and duties. Let's switch that up to actual accomplishments, things that you have accomplished, and make them as measurable as possible. So as quantitative as possible, increased 20% of sales within 6 months, started a new project, launched this, hosted this event on this date, just so we can really be enticed to talk to you more. Also your LinkedIn page, that's your chance to also put a professional photo up there to show a little bit more of your opportunity, a little bit more of your personality. So there's lots of different ways to entice people to want to talk to you more, and that's really the goal with the first step.
I think nowadays LinkedIn is almost everything. It's the professional version of social media, and we're all on our phones all the time. So having interactive things is really interesting.
It's amazing because now you can actually send direct messages to companies that I say, like you have a company crush or a crush on a potential job opportunity. You can just send them a message and express your enthusiasm for their company. If there is a company that you really like or a job opportunity, do some research, see their recent press. Have they had any recent milestones as a company, any accomplishments? Put that into a message and really show your enthusiasm and that you care, you're up to date. That's a way to really stand out.
Okay, so you've secured the first interview. Tell me a little bit about how to prepare for that.
Yes. Also in today's world, there are different platforms and different ways that interviews can be conducted. Anything from a phone interview to a video interview to an in-person interview. With the video interviews, some people can be kind of new to this. Really take your time to prepare for these. Make sure you're in a quiet, professional space with no distractions. Make sure that your background is clean, neat, and as simple as possible. We don't want any distractions. Also, make sure your Wi-Fi connection is very secure, that you have tested whatever platform that they have asked you to use. There's HireVue, there's Spark Hire. All of those have tutorials and sample interviews that you can do on your own on their websites. Highly recommend that you do that so that when you go into the interview, the tech stuff, you got it down. Now you're just focused on showing that personality and sharing all those accomplishments.
And then there's the classic Zoom, which we love to use here on TV. Absolutely. So you've got the interview, your technology is great, lighting is good, and you want to make sure that it's facing you like we do here.
Spotlight is on you. You're going to want that spotlight on you, not coming from behind. So it sounds simple, but trust me, it's really going to make you look really professional and really good.
So what advice would you give when in the middle of the interview? What kind of information should you share? Are there follow-up questions? Tell me more about that.
Yes, absolutely. I would recommend anyone before they're starting an interview to definitely think about their career, think about those specific examples that you've had in your career, and write those down, because when they ask you questions such as, how are you at overcoming challenges in the workplace? Stay away from saying language like, well, I usually or I always, and give them a specific example of a challenge that you faced. Where were you working? What were the challenges? What did you specifically do? And then don't forget, what was that outcome? Giving specific examples is really what they're looking for. Whenever I hear that a candidate was not selected, the feedback I most hear is that they weren't specific enough. So prepare all that ahead of time so all your stories are on the tip of your tongue, ready to share.
So how would you advise on preparation? Like, what would you do? How do you figure out, okay, what are the things that I can add to this potential opportunity?
Yeah, definitely do your research, like I said, on the company, on the person that is interviewing you. Usually they send you their name. Check out their LinkedIn, just some general information so you can know a little bit more about them and how to connect with them during the interview, because that's an important part as well. And yeah, just express your enthusiasm, ask questions. I always say they usually close the interview with, do you have any questions for us? Always have one prepared, because it's very easy to not be able to come up with one after you just completed an interview. And showing that you have a question is, again, showing your interest. You've got the wheels turning. You're thinking about joining the company. And so always have a question prepared at the end.
Okay, great. I love to ask questions, which is why I sit here. So what kind of questions would you advise? You mentioned to be prepared and know about the company, but what's a really good follow-up question?
Sure. I mean, you can ask a company how much they plan on scaling within the next 6 months. What are their plans for this role? Does this role plan to have a team around it eventually? Do they have any new products coming out, new services? I mean, it depends on the industry, but just ask them about their upcoming plans, or maybe do your research and say, I saw a little bit that you guys are planning on doing this, would love to hear more. So again, showing that you did your due diligence and showing your interest.
And then you can always ask about the position itself. What are the expectations there? That's a fail-safe interview question. I know
Absolutely.
I've used it plenty of times
That's a great one.
in my job searches in the past. So Emily, what would you advise? Where can we go to find more resources on how to update a resume, how to interview? What else would you say?
Yeah, well, there's a ton online, and thank goodness for YouTube and all that stuff. But anyone's welcome to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. My name is Emily Gross. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have. But it's a really exciting time when you're starting your job hunt.
Well, Emily, you are wonderful. I love having you here on the couch. I think your energy is so contagious and obviously really good at what you do. So if you if you have any last advice, what's that one thing you would tell a candidate?
I would say really don't be afraid to show your enthusiasm. Companies want to hire people that want to be there. That is going to be worth their investment in you because you're more likely to stay for longer. Even if someone's super qualified but they're not acting very interested in the role, they haven't done their research, they're not prepared, that doesn't look like a great investment for the company. So don't be afraid to show that enthusiasm.
So oftentimes enthusiasm wins the job.
So it can.
Awesome. Well, Emily, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise. We appreciate you being here on the show.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Now, stay tuned. We have a lot more in store, so we'll be right back after this.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Welcome back to Wasatch Weekends. What an awesome show. Hopefully we gave you some good advice, how to get a job, how to land that job. And I know, like I said, the interview process can be a little daunting, so hopefully it's a little bit better now. Thank you so much for staying with us. So the Slam Dance Film Festival, the tickets on sale now. I hope to see you there. Have a great day and keep it here because we have more Wasatch Weekends next week. Bye.